Hello and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we're on Canto 8 and we're continuing with the story of the Samudra Manthan, the story of Shiva and Vishnu and so many others. So before we get started, I'd like to tell you something about the theme. The theme here is about how do you take that which is toxic and turn it to something divine. Let me try and repeat that for you. How do you turn that which is toxic into something divine? How do you take poison and turn it to nectar? Now, in today's time, if someone is very pessimistic and sees the worst in people or situations or life, then we refer to them as negative. We say, this person's too negative. And such a person, we might say, this person prefers to see a half-filled glass as being half empty. So we think that's negative. The focus on what is wrong and what is not right is sometimes referred to as being toxic these days. But let's question this idea. Is the glass that is half full also not half empty? And if it is half full and half empty, that means it is both positive and negative. And that might be closer to the truth. I don't think people are or can be defined by being either negative or positive. I think we all have positive qualities and we all have negative qualities. And then again, if you're going to label somebody as toxic or negative, then how much negative equals to toxic? Personally, I'm not a great fan of judging people and labeling them either as negative or toxic. How about you? Are we not all a mix of good and bad, positive and negative, strengths and weaknesses? What gives us the right to judge others as toxic? And is the opposite being positive, for example, being positive always? Is that a good thing? I don't think so. If we immerse ourselves in our flaws and those of other people and the world around us, we will get depressed and not want to live. Now, that's a problem. I understand that. But if we focus too much on the positive, we will have no room for the range of emotions that we are capable of, and no room for others when they are sad or angry or hurt or fearful. We will shut them down and dismiss them. I've been there. I've been guilty of that. I've been infected by that bug that I call toxic positivity. And then again, had to develop a more balanced approach. Perhaps we all need to go beyond negative and positive, simplistic labels like that, to really enhance the quality of our lives. In the past episode of the Bhagavatam, in Canto 8, chapters 4 to 7, we heard about how the Devas and Asuras, so Deva means demigods and Asuras are the demons, wanted to generate an elixir of immortality. That's something we all want, right? We want immortality, or we want to always be happy, or we want to always be young. We always want this thing that lasts forever. We want a love that lasts forever. We want life that lives forever. But of course, we got to be young and successful and wealthy and all that at the same time. Anyways, they wanted to generate an elixir of immortality. And when they started the process, all that came out was a terrible poison that threatened to kill everyone. So then they went running to Shiva to help them, and he agreed to drink the poison and save the world. And this is, by the way, what highly evolved beings and gurus have been doing since time immemorial. They take on the suffering, the karma, the sins of those who are ready to embrace their eternal nature and life with God. So it's not something new. I mean, people go around saying that, no, our savior, our person is going to take on the sins of the world. Gurus have been doing it for time immemorial, by the way. And Shiva was doing it here in this narrative. And gurus have been saying the same for ages. Anyway, let's learn something from the Vedic texts and hear what the great wisdom of the wisest people that ever lived on this planet. So as I was saying, the story begins with the desire to create a nectar of immortality. And for that, the good guys and the bad guys, the devas and the asuras, get together, the demigods and the demons, they get together to begin a process. Now, this whole idea was suggested by Vishnu, and he participates in the whole thing by taking up the role of Kurma. You see, they were going to churn this particular ocean. It's called the Shweta Dweep, or the ocean of milk. I don't think it was actually milk there, but it was white. Shweta actually means white. So I'm not sure exactly. But they were going to churn this ocean. That's what's important. And out of that was going to emerge the nectar of immortality. And this is a sort of artistic depiction of the scene. And so you have the asuras on one side, that is the demons, and the devas, the demigods on the other side. You have Kurma in the middle, which is the tortoise incarnation of Vishnu, and you have Vasuki, the snake. Now, if all this seems very fantastic to you, please bear with me. There's a lot to learn from these histories and stories from other dimensions. We then have the poison that is generated, and Shiva agrees to drink it. It's Shiva there at the ocean of milk, Shweta Dweep, drinking that poison. All right, so after Shiva drank the poison, the devas and asuras began to churn the ocean with renewed vigor. At first there emerged a Surabhi cow who would produce the finest ghee to be used in ritualistic ceremonies. So now various things began to emerge as they were churning this ocean. Then came a white horse, which the king of the asuras, the demons, wanted. It was King Bali, and he wanted the white horse. All right. Devas had been told, don't interfere, just whatever they want, let them have it. Then a massive white elephant with 4 tusks named Airavrat. Indra took that one. It was followed by 8 male and 8 female elephants. Then came 2 money gems. Money, M-A-N-I, are very special kinds of gems and stones which have tremendous powers in them. There is some monies that are known to be like touchstone, where you touch something like metal with that and it turns to gold. Of course, these things are not available to us right now, but 2 gems of that nature emerged, Kaustubh and Padmarag, both of which were taken by Vishnu. Vishnu actually wears the Kaustubh gem. Then came the Parijata flower, which decorates the celestial planets and fulfills the desires and ambitions of everyone. Imagine having that. Then appeared the Apsaras. These are known to be the dancing girls, the prostitutes in the heavenly planets. They were fully decorated with golden jewelry and dressed in fine, attractive clothing. They moved slowly, attracting and bewildering everyone. Then, like electric lightning, came Rama, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, the source of all opulence. Think of this. If you could have the source of all opulence, wouldn't you go crazy? Everybody wanted her because of her exquisite beauty, her bodily features, her youth, her complexion, her glories. Everyone desired her. With lotus flower in hand, she appeared most beautiful. A great ceremony followed to welcome her. Indra, the sages, and all of nature seemed to bow and honor her with various gifts. It was a great moment when Lakshmi appeared. Lakshmi also appeared with Ram as Sita. She is the wife of Vishnu. There are other depictions of her here. And this is Vishnu. I will tell you more about him in just a moment. Vishnu is the supreme being, the supreme Godhead, the ultimate, the absolute truth. He is the divine or God as envisioned by the Vedic rishis. This is when he appeared as Krishna, or Krishna rather, is Vishnu, depending on which version you accept. All right, so Goddess Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, smiling with shyness, her cheeks decorated by earrings, looked extremely beautiful. She now had a garland of lotus flowers in her hand as she walked examining everyone. She wanted a husband. And as she walked, her ankle bells jingled softly, but she could not find anyone devoid of faults. Some had undergone great austerities. They were greatly highly evolved beings, but they had not conquered anger. Some possessed knowledge of religion, but had not conquered material desires, or were not kind to all living entities. See, these are very fine qualities. Most people don't know what a highly evolved spiritual being is like, but these are the qualities that she's looking for. So even though they knew a lot, they may have possessed knowledge about spirituality, about religion, they had not conquered material desire, or they were not kind to all living entities. Some were great personalities but had not conquered lust. So there's lust, there's anger, there's greed, there's desire. Some were renounced but not liberated. That means they were not free from the influence of the modes of nature. The modes of nature are where you have sattva gun, which is the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance. They were not free of these. One must rise even above the mode of goodness. So many people say, oh, I just want to be a good human being. No, this is about rising even beyond that. Some possess great power and yet were unable to check the power of eternal time. Most of us are locked within time, right? We think in terms of, oh my God, how much stress does time produce in our lives? We are controlled by time. Not only in terms of our age, not only in terms of our capabilities, but also in terms of our day-to-day actions. We're caught up in time. So they were not free of time. All of them depended on something else. How then could they be the supreme controller? She was looking for the Param Ishwara, the supreme controller. Who is Parameshwar? I want that person. Have you ever desired that? I want to find the greatest being on earth, on all universes, in all creation, the supreme controller of everything. That is known as Param, means the great Ishwara, controller. After full deliberation, Lakshmi accepted Mukunda, also known as Vishnu or Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, as her husband, because although he is independent and not in want of her, he possesses all transcendental qualities and mystic powers and is therefore the most desirable. She placed the garland of newly grown lotus flowers on his shoulders and stood by his side, her face smiling in shyness. The Supreme Godhead is the Father of all universes, and his bosom is the residence of Mother Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. She is the proprietor of all opulences, and by her favorable and merciful glance, one can increase the opulence of the universe, of the demigods, the administrators of the universe, and of the inhabitants. Not only is it about abundance in terms of opulence and wealth, but also good behavior and transcendental qualities. So her mercy means a lot. The ultimate, beyond even Lakshmi, is Radha. We'll be talking a lot about her in times to come, but just so you know, she is the source, just as Krishna is the original source of even Vishnu. Why that is so? It's a whole topic. We'll get into it as we go further in the Bhagavatam. So the Asuras, see right now, all the Devas, the demigods, were being blessed by Lakshmi, but the Asuras, they were feeling left out. They were feeling neglected by her. And they became depressed, bewildered, and frustrated. You see, when somebody else gets good fortune, good qualities, good character, wealth, abundance, all of that, and people become envious, right? It is human nature, and it is the nature of the devas and the demons as well. So when we say demons here, we don't refer to some crazy characters that were produced by Hollywood, but we talk about that tendency to be atheistic, the tendency to be possessed by our ego, the tendency to think that this world is everything and to want to exploit the world and the people in it for our own pleasure. That is the quality of asuras or demons. That's what's being referred to here. They were also beings like you and I, but were possessed with that quality. And we come across many people in the world like that too. There are people who desire spiritual advancement, or they desire to come to God. They desire to be better. They desire to be more humane, even at least that. But then there are those who don't care about anybody. They just want to exploit. They just want to use. They just want to take. And those would be referred to as people with a demonic consciousness. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita talks about that very extensively, about the different temperaments, the different natures, the divine nature and the demonic nature, chapter 16. Anyways, the demons and Rakshasas were neglected and by Lakshmi, and so they were feeling very frustrated. But the next thing that appeared was Varuni. They liked her. She was lotus-eyed goddess, but she controls drunkards. She knew how to manage them, but they desired her. Then a very wonderful male person appeared. He was Dhanvantari, an expansion of Vishnu. He was a demigod who was very conversant with the science of medicine. Let's see if I can throw that picture up on the screen for you. Dhanvantari. So that's Dhanvantari, and right. So he was a demigod who was very conversant with the science of medicine. In fact, many of the people who are in Ayurveda will call on Dhanvantari to bless their healing. He was strongly built. His arms were long, stout, and strong like a lion, and his complexion was blackish. He was very young. He was decorated with flower garlands and ornaments. He was dressed in yellow garments, and in his hand he carried a jug filled to the top with the nectar of immortality, which is what they'd all come there for. The asuras, the demons, desiring the jug and its contents, immediately snatched it away by force. So this is the nature of people who are evil. They don't care about rules, they don't care about etiquette, they don't care about goodness, or fairness. They just want what they want, and they will grab it by force. And that's what they just did. They snatched it away by force. The devas, the demigods, the good guys, seeing this became very morose and sought the shelter of Vishnu. The Supreme Being, Vishnu, who always desires to fulfill the ambitions of his devotees, seeing them morose, said, "Do not be aggrieved. I shall bewilder the asuras, the demons, by creating a quarrel among them. In this way I shall fulfill your desire to have the nectar." And then a quarrel arose amongst the asuras, the demons, over who would get the nectar first. Each of them said, "You cannot drink it first. I must drink it first. Me first, not you." I think you'll come across people like that, right? Even in this world. They're so aggressive to be first. They're so aggressive to have it all. They're so aggressive about everything. Some of the weaker asuras even sided with the devas, saying that the nectar should be divided equally. Now at this point, taking advantage of the situation, the Supreme Godhead, Vishnu, who can counteract any unfavorable situation, assumed the form of an extremely beautiful woman, Mohini. Now think about the Supreme Being taking the form of a woman, a most attractive woman, who was most pleasing to the mind. Her complexion resembled in color a newly grown blackish lotus, and every part of her body was exceedingly beautiful. Her ears were decorated with earrings. Her cheeks and face were full of youthful luster. Her nose was raised, and her large breasts made her waist seem very thin. Attracted by the aroma of her face and body, bumblebees hummed around her, and thus her eyes were restless. Her hair was garlanded with flowers. Her attractively constructed neck was decorated with a necklace and other ornaments. Her arms were decorated with bangles. Her legs were decorated with ankle belts. Her body was covered with a flowing sari, and she seemed to be an ocean of beauty. Because of the movements of her eyebrows, as she smiled and glanced, the asuras, the demons who were filled with lusty desires, wanted to possess her. So these are some images. Vishnu, Mohini, Vishnu coming as Mohini, and in this you'll see more. She gets hold of the pot of nectar, And you'll see the asuras on one side, the devas on the other side. And that's her again, Mohini. And this one shows Vishnu appearing as Mohini. So various images, different artists trying to convey the idea of the incredible beauty of Mohini Murti. As the asuras saw, so the asuras now are the demons, those guys, they saw Mohini coming toward them. They were in awe of her beauty and quickly approached her, filled with lusty desires. They said, "Oh, wonderfully beautiful girl, you have such nice eyes, resembling the petals of a lotus flower. Who are you? Where do you come from? What is your purpose in coming here? You are extraordinarily beautiful, and our minds have become agitated simply by seeing you. Certainly, Providence has sent you to please our senses." So this is another very significant quality of the asura, or the demonic person, is that they think everything in this world is for the pleasure of their senses. Everything is designed for me. There's a whole focus on me. Everything is for me, for my pleasure. I am the center of the universe. I shall have what I want to have. It's this egoic, burning passion within them. So he says here, all of us, both devas and asuras, were born of the same father. So this is very interesting. Actually, all the good guys and the bad guys, devas and the asuras, the demigods and the demons, were born of the same father, Kashyap. He was a great rishi, a great saintly person. And so he says that we are related as brothers, but now we have become increasingly inimical because of this pot of nectar. What did that pot of nectar contain? It contained the elixir of immortality. So they said, "We request you to favor us by settling our dispute and divide the nectar equally among us." The Supreme Godhead Vishnu, who had assumed the form of a beautiful woman, Mohini, began to smile. Looking at them with attractive feminine gestures, she said, "O sons of Kashyap, I am only a prostitute. How is it that you have so much faith in me? As monkeys and dogs are unsteady in their sexual relationships and want newer and newer friends every day, women such as me seek new friends daily. Friendship with such a woman is never permanent." So she's actually cautioning them. But they're so carried away by their lustful desires that they're not really listening. So the asuras, the demons, they laughed and nevertheless placed the container of nectar into her hands. Mohini, the incarnation of Vishnu, female incarnation, then smilingly and with attractive words said to them, "My dear asuras, if you accept whatever I may do, whether honest or dishonest, then I can take responsibility for dividing the nectar amongst you." The asuras immediately assented. They said, "Yes, what you have said is all right." Thus they agreed to accept her decision. The devas and asuras, the demigods and the demons, then fasted, they bathed, they gave charity and performed fire sacrifice. So they were going to step into eternal life. They were going to have everything they desired. They wanted to prepare for it. They created a whole ceremony around that. They then dressed in new garments and decorated their bodies in ornaments and sat facing the east on seats made of kusha grass in beautiful arena decorated with flowers and lamps and the fragrance of incense. Mohini, dressed in the most beautiful sari, her ankle bells tinkling, entered the arena, walking very slowly and seductively, carrying a water pot with the elixir of immortality in her hand. Her attractive nose and cheeks and her ears, adorned with golden earrings, made her face very beautiful. As she moved, her sari's border on her breasts moved slightly aside. When the demigods and demons saw these beautiful features of Mohini, who was glancing at them and slightly smiling, they were completely enchanted. Now, demons by nature, a demonic temperament, people are usually crooked in nature, like snakes. And getting them to share the nectar would not be feasible. Therefore, the Supreme Being as Mohini, the master of the universe, first approached the demons, satisfied them with sweet words, and thus cheated them of their share of the nectar. Then she went to the demigods, devas, who were sitting at a distant place, and gave them the nectar that would make them free from becoming invalid or old and from death. The asuras, the demons, had developed affection and faith in Mohini, and they were afraid of disturbing their relationship. Therefore, they showed great respect and honor to her and did not say anything that might disturb their friendship with her. Since they had promised to accept whatever she did, just or unjust, to keep this promise, to show their equilibrium, to save themselves from fighting with her, they remained silent. Now at this point, one of the asuras, the demons, his name was Rahu, decided, this is not cool. I'm going to slip into the camp of the devas, the demigods. So the demon Rahu, who causes eclipses of the sun and moon, if you're familiar with astrology, you know of Rahu, he covered himself with the dress of a demigod, of a deva, and entered into their assembly and started to drink the nectar. At that moment, he was detected, and Vishnu, with his disc, cut off Rahu's head. So I'll take you to that scene here. That's Mohini, actually Vishnu, with the disc cut off Rahu's head. Pretty brutal. However, since the head had been touched by the nectar, it became immortal. The head became immortal, and it lived, while the rest of the body perished. When the demigods had almost finished drinking the nectar, the Supreme Being, the best friend and well-wisher of everyone, disclosed his original form. So now he went from being Mohini and showed his form as Vishnu. It may be observed that both the devas and the asuras, the demigods and demons, came to the same place at the same time and for the same purpose. Yet the demigods, the devas, who always take shelter of the Supreme Being, achieved one result, while the asuras, the demons who live to please their senses, achieved another outcome. In the same way, we in human society perform various actions for our personal or extended sense gratification with reference to the body. All these activities are baffled because of self-interest. But when the same activities are performed for the satisfaction of the divine, the beneficial results are distributed to everyone, just as water poured on the root of a tree is distributed throughout the entire tree. So what's he saying here? He's saying that as we nourish a tree by feeding the roots, as we nourish our body by giving food into the mouth, then the entire nourishment goes to the entire body. Similarly, when we perform our activities, we devote our life as an offering to the divine, when we are here in service to the divine, when we come from that place of divine love, then whatever we do is not only beneficial to us, but is beneficial to everyone. That benefit then spreads out throughout the entire universe through ways that may not make sense to us any more than a cell within our body might understand how it is that by eating food it gets its nourishment. It doesn't know, and how the rest of the body receives that same nourishment as well. We may not understand so many things, but at the same time, the great rishis, the wise people who had visions, who had clear guidance, they wrote this for our benefit. So we should consider what they're talking about and how this might work. Now, the demigods and demons, the asuras and devas, had both engaged in producing the nectar of immortality. Yet because the asuras, the demons, were not devotees of Vishnu or Krishna, they were unable to drink it. After ensuring that the devas, the demigods, received the nectar, Vishnu left that place and returned to his abode. The demons now, feeling cheated, marched towards the demigod with raised weapons. Both parties were extremely angry. A fierce battle ensued. The fighting was so terrible that simply hearing about it would make the hair on one's body stand on end. The commander-in-chief of the asuras, of the demons, was King Bali. His airplane had been built by the demon Maya and had all kinds of combat weapons. It would appear and disappear at will. Talk about an incredible, being able to make an entire airplane appear and disappear. Indra, on the other hand, the king of the demigods, was seated on his elephant, Airavrat, who can go anywhere. The demigods and demons came before each other, reproached one another with words piercing to the heart. They then attacked one another with great strength. Desiring victory, they fought, hitting one another severely with various weapons. Arms, thighs, necks, legs, and heads of their soldiers were severed. Their flags, bows, armor, and ornament were torn apart. King Bali used various weapons against Indra, but Indra completely counteracted them and cut them to pieces. Bali, the king of the Asuras, resorted to generating illusions such as blazing mountain, from which fell trees, stones, scorpions, snakes that killed and crushed the demigod soldiers. So he could actually work with illusions of all kinds. Many hundreds of male and female carnivorous demons, completely naked and carrying tridents in their hands, then appeared, crying the slogan, "Cut them to pieces, pierce them." Fierce clouds and strong winds then appeared in the sky, rumbling very gravely with the sound of thunder. They began to shower live coals. A great devastating fire created by Bali then began burning all the soldiers of the demigods. Thereafter, whirlpools and sea waves, agitated by fierce blasts of wind, appeared everywhere, creating a furious flood. Seeing this magical atmosphere, the soldiers of the Devas, the demigods, became morose. They could find no way to defeat the demons and meditated on Vishnu, the Supreme Being. So keep in mind here, these are people with mystical abilities. These are people who have, through meditation, through various practices, developed mystical powers. You may say, oh, this is crazy, this is impossible. But keep in mind, we too, even as a modern society, are developing mystical powers. Our cell phones are a clear example of that. Our cars are an example of that. We may not realize it, but if you took it back 100, 200 years ago, people will think you're doing magic. The only difference between that civilization and this one here is that then they develop the powers within themselves, not within factories, not within objects, but within themselves. They develop the potential of the human being and what we are capable of. Whereas in today's time, in the last 300 years or so, as we've developed modern day science, the science has been a science of matter, trying to manipulate matter to create various results. So their technologies are different, ours are different, and we just going to have to think that, well, if this is possible, then maybe that's possible too. As the dangers of a dream cease when the dreamer awakens, the illusions created by the jugglery of the demons were vanquished by the transcendental prowess of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as soon as he entered the battlefield. So remember, they called on Vishnu, and when he appeared, all those illusions disappeared. Simply by remembrance of the Supreme Being, Krishna becomes free from all dangers. The demons then turned their attack to Vishnu. Kalanemi hurled a trident at Garuda, Vishnu's carrier, but the master of the universe, Vishnu, immediately caught it and with the same weapon killed the demon. Many other demons who tried to attack him also had their heads severed by Vishnu's disc. Then, by the grace of the Supreme Godhead, Vishnu, all the demigods were brought back to life. All the ones who were their soldiers that had been killed and all the ones that also got killed here now were brought back to life. Enlivened, they now began defeating the demons, the Asuras. They felt hope. They felt Vishnu's on their side. Just like Arjun felt when he was in the battle of Kurukshetra at the time when the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. If you haven't read that, please do. Or I have an entire playlist on the Bhagavad Gita on my YouTube channel, so please watch that. That'll give you some of the basis of all of this that we're talking about here. You can go over to my channel. It's spiritual. I sometimes mix up the name. I just changed it. So, it's Spiritual Wisdom Channel. You can look for that, or you can look for Spiritual Actualization, or my name, Rohit Juneja, and you'll find my channel and the playlist Bhagavad Gita. You'll find it there. Okay, when Indra attacked Bali with his thunderbolt, Bali's airplane fell to the ground like a mountain with its wings cut off. His friend Jambasura came to Bali's rescue, but ultimately vanquished by Indra. Then various demons altogether began attacking Indra. So Indra is the king of the demigods, right? They began attacking him with incessant showers of arrows, just as clouds over the sun in a rainy season. In other words, there were so many clouds, it appeared like he was covered with showers of arrows, like clouds covering the sun in the rainy season. The demigods, unable to see Indra, their captain and leader, became very anxious. After a while, Indra was able to free himself and emerged bright and beautiful, shining effulgently like the sun at the end of night. Seeing his soldiers oppressed and disheartened by the enemy, Indra used his weapons to create a fearful atmosphere on the battlefield. However, Indra's weapon, the thunderbolt, which was powerful as a Brahmastra is like an atomic weapon, was ineffective with one of those asuras, the demons, Namuchi. Indra became morose when he heard an unembodied voice say, "O Indra, because I have given this demon Namuchi the benediction that he will never be killed by any weapon that is dry or moist, you have to think of another way to kill him." Indra then began to meditate and discovered a weapon made of foam that was neither dry nor moist. When Brahma saw the imminent total annihilation of the demons, he sent a message with Narad, who went before the demigods to make them stop fighting. The great sage Narad told the demigods, "All of you are protected by the arms of the Supreme Godhead, and by his grace you have gotten the nectar. By the grace of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, you are glorious in every way. Therefore, please stop fighting." Now, it's very interesting here that the asuras, the demons, were about to be destroyed, and yet Brahma did not want that to happen. Why? We all dream of a world where there'll only be good people, where there'll be no evil, where there'll be nothing bad. That's not the journey of this world. That's not why this world was created. In this world, there has to be both positive and negative. There has to be good and evil. All of it needs to be there. That's the spectrum of this world. And within that spectrum, we find ourselves choosing, moving. The forces that are harmful are also the ones that cause us to grow. The negative causes the positive to expand, while the positive might sometimes cause the negative to expand. Sometimes people seeing folks who are trying to be good or saintly or spiritual or religious tend to go the other way. They tend to become nasty and evil. And likewise, when you see people who are behaving in a way that is hurtful to others, you may choose to do the opposite and be kind and generous and loving and sweet. But the point is about choice and is about free will. And if you took away the darkness and only had light, there would be no free will. Everybody would be the same. There would be no choice. And if there is no choice, there cannot be love. Because the ultimate place is to come to the place of love. But love must be chosen. It cannot be forced. It cannot be the only option. You see, if love was the only option, then you'd have to stay around with somebody who was damaging to you or maybe not beneficial, might be harming you. Love must be chosen. You must have the freedom to choose the one you love. And so it is with the divine, with God, with Source, whatever name you want to give it. You must choose or not. You're free to say, no, there's no God. There's nothing. That's fine. That's your choice. And then look at what reality you create from that. And then try the other option. There is a God. Oh, well, you can have the option he's angry and wrathful and all that. Or you can have the concept of a divine being who is divinely loving, who loves you unconditionally, no matter what. What would that look like? What would that relationship be? What would that be to interact with such a being? What would such a being look like? That's what the Vedas are talking about. They're giving us deep, clear knowledge. All right, let's continue back with our story. And by the way, these are known to be itihasa. These are from the Purana, so they are known to be histories. They may not have happened on this planet. They may have happened on other planets in other dimensions and with other people with other capabilities than we have. So anyway, so this happened, and then we come to the most interesting part of today's story, and that is when Shiva saw all of this, then accompanied by his wife Uma. So now the battle ended, right? And now we come to the next part. Shiva saw all of this, his wife Uma and he, And along with their companions, they had many ghostly companions, they went to Vishnu. And they wanted to see his feminine form of Mohini. So when they came to Vishnu, he welcomed Shiva and his entourage and seated them comfortably. Shiva's other name is Mahadev. Mahadev means the God of gods. He is the greatest of all devas, of all demigods. He's not the supreme being, but he is an expansion of Vishnu. He is an expansion of the supreme being. So Mahadev said, "O all-pervading Lord, master of the universe," he's talking to Vishnu here, "by your energy, you are transformed into the creation," meaning by your energy, you, that is Vishnu, are transformed into the creation. So this is what is said, that the Supreme Being is the energy of the universe, is within everyone, and yet exists as a being within the light. So all of this exists simultaneously. He is both personal and impersonal. He is both energy and being. And those who want to say which one is more important and which is really a matter of preference. If you prefer the impersonal, so be it. And if you prefer a more personal understanding of the divine, a place where you can have a relationship, where you can have a connection, where you can have a place where you can put your heart, then that is available as well. And especially when you come to the stories in the Leela of Krishna, you will get to understand that even more deeply. So he says, by your energy, you are transformed into the creation. You are the supreme absolute truth, the supreme Brahman. So Brahman is the energy of the universe. You are completely spiritual and eternal. You are not subjected to birth, death, and sustenance. You are eternal, free from the influence of nature, and full of transcendental bliss. You are the supreme cause of all causes. Nothing can exist without you. You are free from material contamination, and since the entire cosmos is caused by your transcendental energies, it is not false or unreal. So there's many people who claim, oh, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, the world is false, and the only thing that is real is the divine. And he says, no, the world is actually created by your energies. Whose energies? Like when you look at the energy of this universe, scientists say, oh, the world is made of energy. Really? Okay, so what's that energy? They can't tell us. But that energy is actually God. It's the impersonal manifestation of God, just like the sun rays are the energy of the sun, but there exists a sun from which those rays come. Similarly, there exists a being from who this energy emanates. Right? So both work hand in hand. And so therefore to say that this energy is unreal is untrue. It is also real. It is as spiritual as God himself. The energy of this world of which everything is made, the plants, the trees, the sky, the earth, is equally spiritual. Try and understand. That's why when you're in nature, you feel so peaceful, you feel so uplifted, you feel so good, because you are in the presence of God. Likewise, when you go to a temple, or church or mosque, any of these places, wherever you go, you will feel the presence of God because of the devotion of the people there. So Shiva continues. He says, you are the supreme knowledge personified. You know everything about this creation. As the air enters the vast sky, you are present everywhere, and therefore you are the knower of all. He says, my Lord, I have seen all your incarnations, and now that you have appeared as a beautiful young woman, I wish to see that form of yours, the form that captivated the asuras, the demons, and enabled the demigods to drink nectar. I am very eager to see that form. Vishnu smiled. And he said, O best of the demigods, O best of the devas, Mahadev, I shall now show you my form that is very much appreciated by those who are lusty. Since you want to see that form, I shall reveal it in your presence. Vishnu then disappeared while Shiva and his wife Uma looked for him everywhere. Now remember, Shiva was here with his wife, Uma, Parvati. Thereafter, in a nice forest nearby, full of trees with reddish pink leaves and varieties of flowers, Shiva saw a beautiful woman playing with a ball. Her hips were covered with a shining sari and ornamented with a belt. As the ball bounced up and down, Mohini played with it. Her heavy breasts and thin waist trembled as her soft feet, which were reddish like coral, moved here and there. Her face was decorated by broad, beautiful, restless eyes, which moved as the ball bounced here and there from her hand. The two brilliant earrings on her ears decorated her shining cheeks like bluish reflections, and her hair scattered on her face made her look even more beautiful. As she played with the ball, the sari covering her body became loose and her hair scattered. She tried to bind her hair with her beautiful left hand, and at the same time she played with the ball by striking it with her right hand. This was so attractive that the Supreme Lord captivated everyone. While Shiva observed, now keep in mind, Shiva is a renunciate. Shiva is detached. Nothing and no one can attract Shiva. Nothing and no one can make him waver. Shiva is so completely in his trance and in his meditation and so completely in control of his mind that nothing could have ever made this happen. And yet, that Shiva, on observing Mohini playing with the ball, observing her glancing at him and slightly smiling in bashfulness, Shiva forgot both himself and his wife Uma, his beautiful wife, as well as his associates who were nearby. When the ball leaped from Mohini's hand and fell at a distance, the woman began to follow it, but a breeze suddenly blew away the fine dress and belt that covered her. Shiva saw the woman, every part of whose body was beautifully formed, and the beautiful woman also looked at him. Therefore, thinking that she was attracted to him, Shiva became very much attracted to her. Shiva, his good sense taken away by Mohini because of lusty desire to enjoy with her, became so mad for her that even in the presence of his wife, he did not hesitate to approach her. The beautiful woman was already naked, and when she saw Shiva coming toward her, she became extremely bashful. She kept smiling, but she hid herself among the trees and did not stay in one place. His senses being agitated by lusty desire, Shiva began to follow her. After following her with great speed, Shiva caught her by the braid of her hair and dragged her near him. Although she was unwilling, he embraced her with his arms. Being embraced by Shiva, the woman whose hair was scattered swirled like a snake. This woman was created by Yogamaya, the energy of the Supreme Godhead. She released herself somehow or other from the embrace of Shiva's arms and ran away. As if harassed by an enemy in the form of lusty desire, Shiva followed the path of Vishnu, who acts very wonderfully and who had taken the form of Mohini. Just as a maddened bull elephant follows a fertile male elephant in heat, Shiva followed the beautiful woman and discharged semen as he was following her. Okay, here's more. So these are some pictures from, I think, AI generated stuff. I don't know. You can see here that Shiva was completely besotted. Shiva, who is the master of the senses, and his discharge of, who is the master of senses, his discharge of semen never goes in vain. Wherever on the surface of earth his semen fell, mines of gold and silver appeared later. Following Mohini, Shiva went everywhere, near the shores of the rivers and lakes, near the mountains, near the forests, near the gardens, wherever there lived great cities. In other words, she was flying through the sky and Shiva was following her. When Shiva had fully discharged semen, he could now see himself, how he had been victimized by the illusion created by the Supreme Being. Thus he restrained himself. Shiva could understand his position and that of the Supreme Godhead, who has unlimited potencies. Having reached this understanding, he was not at all surprised by the wonderful way Vishnu had acted upon him. Now, Shiva is a great devotee of Vishnu. Not everybody knows this, but he is a great devotee. To him, that's his meditation, that's his worship, that's his everything. Continue. Seeing Shiva unagitated and unashamed, Vishnu was very pleased. He resumed his original form and spoke as follows. O Mahadev, Shambho, may all good fortune be upon you. Who within the material world but you can surpass my Maya, my illusory energy? People are generally attached to sense enjoyment and conquered by its influence. The influence of material nature is very difficult for them to overcome. However, the material or external energy Maya will not be able to bewilder you any longer. Shiva then circumambulated Vishnu and returned to his abode Kailash along with his associates. He then addressed his wife Bhavani, or Uma, Parvati. O goddess, you have now seen the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the unborn master of everyone. Although I am one of his principal expansions, even I was illusioned by his energy. What then is to be said of others who are fully illusioned by it? When I finished performing mystic yoga for 1,000 years, you asked me upon whom I was meditating. Now know that it is that Supreme Person to whom time has no entrance and who the Vedas cannot understand. It is on him, on Vishnu, that I was meditating. At this point, Shukadev, the great sage who has been narrating all of these histories, said, the endeavor of one who constantly hears or describes this narration will never be fruitless. Indeed, chanting the glories of the Supreme Godhead is the only means to annihilate all sufferings in this material world. Assuming the form of a young woman and thus bewildering the demons, he distributed to his devotees, the demigods, the nectar of immortality. Unto that Supreme Being who always fulfills the desires of his devotees, I offer my respectful obeisances. So with that, we end today's Bhagavatam. I would love to see your questions. I'd love to know what you've been thinking. If you haven't yet written down your questions and thoughts, please write them down now. I would love to take them up and respond to everything that you've written down. All right, let's see what we got. Yes, Swati, that's so true what you say. The balance of positive and negative traits within the same person as well. We all have it, don't we? We all have positive and negative traits. But as we surrender them, more and more of the positive traits tend to come within us. That's what happened. The Devas surrendered to Shiva and asked for his help. And then he swallowed up the poison from within within the Shvetadvip. So the same thing applies to us. Our spiritual guides, our gurus, our helpers, free us from the anarthas, the negative qualities that we have within us, and help us come to a place where we become more and more increasingly connected with the divine. But as long as we're in this world, to some degree, those will remain. Those impurities will remain. What is most important, however, is instead of focusing on someone's bad quality, see, here's the deal. If you focus on that which is negative in yourself or others, that whatever you focus on will grow. Keep that in mind. Now, I'm not saying to be only positive, and I'm not saying to be focused on the negative either. It's just acceptance that we all have both positive and negative. Don't get fixated on either one. That this is the world of duality. There's always light will produce shadow. It will always be so, right? Day and night will follow each other. It is always going to be so. It is the nature of this world. Our job is, while we're here, even in this world of duality and in this world of illusions, we need to be able to focus on the Supreme Being who is beyond the duality of this world. We need to be able to aspire to and seek a higher consciousness that is neither positive nor negative. That is the meaning of the word transcendental. Transcendental means that which transcends the dualities of this world, the positive and the negative. Okay. So, very important. Labanya, thank you so much for your question. She says, you mentioned negative people. How do we deal with negative people? So the first thing is, don't fight or resist them. Negative, if someone is primarily negative in their outlook, they are the ones who are suffering. Their own negativity is causing them to suffer. If anything, accept them as they are. Do not fight their nature, because the more you criticize them, the more you judge them, the more you try to oppose them or fight them or change them or any of that, the more you get entangled in their negativity, the more you start to develop their qualities, because that's now your meditation, that's now your focus. And what you focus on will start to come within you. I've known people who, for example, especially where there's hate involved or anger involved, like hated their parents or hated their mother-in-law or whatever else. And then they start developing the qualities of that very person over time, maybe not immediately, but over time. Those qualities start to permeate into that person. Very soon, let's say they hated their parents the way they were, now they have kids, and then they start behaving with their kids the way their parents behaved with them. You see, our mind is constantly absorbing data and is becoming conditioned by the situations we place ourselves in. So it's very important to understand that what we're focusing on is starting to get more and more ingrained within us. And as a result of which, we are becoming more and more like that which we focus on. So where's your attention? Ask yourself. Where is your focus? Are you focusing on that which is good? And I'll say go even beyond good. Focus on that which is transcendental, that which is beyond good and evil, beyond right and wrong, right? Come to that place, which is a place of silence. That's where you'll experience it. A place of stillness, you'll experience it there. You will not experience it in your mind. Your mind is constantly moving between right and wrong, positive and negative. I like this, I don't like this is good, this is bad. It's constantly moving between these two. Therefore, the more time you spend in that place of inner silence, of peace, and meditation, you will find yourself becoming more and more free of the control of your mind. The poison that is in here will become purified, and you will then behold the wonderful and charming qualities of the divine. Just as what happened with all of these narratives you see. First, the poison was removed. First, they appealed to Shiva, and then after that, the poison was removed. And after that came a big battle. And that battle will also occur within us, in our mind. There will be a battle for that mind. But as we start to become steady in our spirituality and in our devotion and in our love for the divine, for God, then what will happen is the sweetness will begin to take over. The nectar will begin to permeate, and we will become drawn to, attracted by the divine. Just as Shiva was attracted by Mohini, we will become attracted by the name, the form, the qualities, and all of that of Krishna. Krishna means the all-attractive. The source of everything is the most attractive being of all. There is no need to force anyone to come to this path. One who is attracted, one who is drawn, will seek out for themselves. And when you are here, and as you clear the negativities, the anarthas from within yourself, focus on that. As you clear those out and focus more and more on the divine, naturally those qualities will come within you. All right, any more questions? Anyone else? We have some folks also joining us on Instagram, as well as here on YouTube and on Zoom. So wherever you are, if you have any further questions, if you haven't asked them now, please feel free to write these down in the comments. This program is saved on YouTube and on Instagram, so you can follow it, or you can watch it again at your own leisure, and you can ask the questions then if you haven't done so now. All right. I look forward to seeing you again next week. And please always remember, I love having your questions and would love to hear from you. Okay. See you next week. Next Tuesday, same time. We're here at 7 p.m. Pacific and 10 p.m. Eastern. And if you're in India, then it's Wednesday, actually. But anyway, for the US, it's Tuesday evenings, every Tuesday. Okay. Good night. Jai Shri Krishna.
Hi, Rohit.
Hey, just a sec.